Welcome back. All right, from here, let's go ahead and make some adjustments and really make this pop. So you notice so far, this duck has an interesting effect, but no more interesting than a standard threshold. What I'm really digging about it is how it looks like it could be an ink drawing or a print, but it's lost details everywhere, both in the areas where it's light and in the areas where it's dark. Things are just not quite the same, but we set this up to be adjusted. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to double click the duck layer to get back to our smart object. Now first we have the threshold, and as I've mentioned earlier, threshold means that anything below a certain level becomes black and anything above a certain level becomes white. By default, that level is 128 or middle gray. This icon means that it's not actually calculating an accurate histogram. Clicking it again will redo it so you get something a little more. So what happens if we just move this around? Well, it goes to black or it goes to white. Not super useful. Fortunately, we have other tools at our disposal. And if you ever get stumped on these, you can just drag the threshold word itself to move a little bit at a time. Threshold word, the threshold level label. That's true for a lot of things in Photoshop. There's a hidden drag icon you can use. Notice how it becomes a little side-to-side arrow hand. That's what that means. Okay, so let's take a look at the levels itself. If we click on levels, remember that we can squish stuff over. Well, that opens up some things, but it closes up others, so that may not be the best solution either. We can also bring things down, bring things up, and we'll have kind of a logical effect. As things become darker, it reaches the black level more quickly, and things will vanish. As things become lighter, hits the white level more quickly, and it vanishes. So we could use masks and a bunch of levels layers, but let's attack that overlay layer first. So in the overlay layer, I'm just going to click on that. No adjustments. It's just a standard 50% gray layer set to overlay. So what we're going to do instead is grab our brush tool, which is a B on the keyboard, as I knock things onto my keyboard. There we go. Remember, students, keep a clean desk. Do as I say, not as I do. Now this is a hard brush at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and make a nice soft brush instead. I'm going to lower the hardness. I'm just going to right click to bring up the hardness. You can also do that up here in this bar right here, which is the preference bar, I believe they call it. This is the toolbar. I want to say it's the preference bar. I should look that up. And we have the size. We can do a little quick pinching or stretching. We can also change the opacity. I'm actually going to recommend that we start off light and we can click our way up. 27 should work. So I'm going to just, on the gray layer, paint in white. And notice that the black areas start to open up and then eventually disappear. So that might be useful for something like in the eye. Now, why is it doing that? Because overlay, if we were to turn off threshold, overlay lightens when it goes to white and darkens when it goes to black. So I'm just going to open this up. You could also use the dodge and the burn directly on the image, but that would be destructive. You could also use the dodge and the burn as additional layers. We do in fact have those. Color dodge, linear dodge add, which is far more extreme. And we also have color burn and linear burn. But we're going to go ahead and use overlay just because we can use everything in one go. It should be sufficient for most of your cases. Let me pop this back to overlay. Turn the threshold back on. I'm going to press X on my keyboard to flip the background with the foreground color. Hello, X, there we go. And I'm going to paint in some of the details on this duck. Wherever it's white, if I want more to show up, I'll just start painting it in. And zoom in. Now, if I start losing something, then I can just come back and use white, and I can also paint at a lower opacity. Remember, the numeral keys at the top of your keyboard, not the number pad, but at the top of the keyboard, tapping those will allow you to change the opacity of the tool you are on. So I press 2, I get 20, 3, I get 30, 4, I get 40, etc., all the way up to 0 for 100%. But if I type a couple of numbers quickly, like 1 and 4, I get 14, so that's 14%. Pretty neat, right? I think so. But then again, that's probably why I'm here teaching you guys how to do this stuff. I like how this is opened up. I'm going to zoom in, take a look at that. So I'm going to focus in. I'm going to make that my goal. I'm going to press X on my keyboard to flip the foreground and background color. I'm going to use B on the keyboard to get my brush back. And I'm just going to tap a few times. There we go. And start lightening this up more and more. I want this to go faster. I'm going to go to 6. Now, what if you can't get it up high enough? Well, now might be a time to investigate the levels. I'm going to bring this down to 20%, flip it to white real quick. Ooh, here we go. Now might be a good time to investigate levels. And you can use more of these if you need to. That's perfectly fine. What if you need 2 overlays? Remember, each overlay will do a certain amount of brightening and darkening. In fact, I want to say it's the equivalent of 30% of an f-stop, something along those lines. I'll look that up. It's an interesting piece of trivia for photographers. I'll find that one for you guys and let you know. So if I just duplicate this, you'd see how it just pushed everything even more extreme because I'm doing the overlay twice. And I actually like that a lot. So maybe I'll stick with that. The other option I could do is pop down. Now my levels is before my overlay, so it's going to have a slightly different effect. If you move it above it, it will also have a different effect. Just going to pop in on levels. Notice I can like darken huge swaths very quickly or lighten huge swaths. So you might want more than one level. Oh, look at that wing. That looks great. What was it before? Yeah, that opens up this area much better. But I lose all this. So I'm going to go in here. Remember, there's a mask by default. I'm going to take my brush tool. This time I'm going to use the Alt key and right drag. And I'm going to really quickly, there we go, drag down to make it hard and go left to make it a little smaller. Press 0 at the top of my keyboard to get 100%. And I'm going to actually invert my mask. I have my mask selected, Control I. And now I'm going to paint it back in with white in the areas that I want it to exist. So I don't want it there, I want it here. Look at that pattern. Oh, that is gorgeous. Look at that. So if I wanted some more in this area, I could easily open that up. In here, I have that choice as well. In these areas, oh, I can hear my little bird. I thought he was asleep. He's saying hello to the class, if you can hear him in the background. That's Bob the bird. Hello, Bob. He's a little cockatiel. He likes to comment on things. All right, so I've brought in some darks, but I think that more overlay is definitely going to help. Going to switch over to my overlay layer, pop that on. Now you can see the drastic difference, perhaps too much in a lot of areas. So I'm actually going to zero this out. How do you do that with the overlay? Well, I'm going to double click my color so that I can do my foreground color picker. And I'm going to go over to my brightness, make sure my hue 0, my saturation 0, and my brightness is 50%, which will give me 128 across the board for a 128 gray. That's 80, 80, 80 in hex code if you're in text code. Tell OK and fill with foreground color with Alt Delete. Okay, and now I'm back to neutral. D on the keyboard to get my black and white ready again. X to get my white in the foreground. Right click and drop my hardness. And start opening up some of the feathers. And maybe try to retrieve some of the beak so that we have some delineation. Notice I'm just hitting X on the keyboard to switch between black and white, Control Z to undo. I can use 3 on the keyboard to get to 30% and just start building this up. I'm going for texture, 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 and because the duck is just covered with feathers, it will open up oh so beautifully. Oops, I hit a spot and I wanted to keep. Watch out for that. Hi, Bob Bird. Here we go, open those up. That's a little much there. There we go. So you don't have to have fully textured everything. I just think on this duck, it will look good. So use your sense of design that you've built up over your semesters of study, and they will serve you well. Get some texture. Lost a little much there. Let's do 10% just open this up. Okay, do 40%. It's not enough. Pop back down to the bottom layer. Kick that up. That's a little more. There we go. Remember, if I were to flatten these overlay layers down, then they would not have the same effect. You need to have a couple of them to work because it's going to push it further and further. It's additive in that way. Oh, look at this duck. It's a good-looking duck. Over at Stanislaus State, we have a lot of ducks that hang out around campus, and so you can watch them while you eat. And sometimes they'll come and take a nap by your feet, which is always very sweet. Makes you feel like a Disney princess. Alrighty. Again, some more white here. Here we go. Oh, I like that. Open that up. You know what? That looks good. Stick with that. Let's pop over here. And X. Let's darken in these feathers here. We're just losing. We lost a little too much texture. Oh, now I lost it to the black instead of to the white. Let's try. There we go. Oh, ooh. Look at that. This is a good duck. Undo that, just bring in a little bit. Look at this pattern. This is a good looking duck. Oh yeah. Okay. You're mostly just going to hear me go, ooh, ah, because this reveals surprising things. That's part of the fun thing about this technique. You're never quite sure what you're going to find. And I've used this duck as a demonstration last semester, I believe it was. And this is, I'm still finding different things in it. It's a fun way to explore the image. 40% is too high in this case. I'm going to kick it down to 10. And just carefully bring that in. Okay. Click a whole bunch of times. Be careful. Bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. I like where this is going. I'm going to save. Control S. I need more. 30%. 40%. Can the engines take it, Captain? Still not enough. So what am I going to do in this case? I can make another overlay layer, but now might be a time to investigate levels again. So we used one levels already, but there's nothing against making another one. This time I'm going to make it above the overlay layer. We'll have a slightly different effect. I'm going to again go to adjustment layers. There's also an adjustment layer palette. I find I don't use that very often. I'll see on YouTube a lot people love this. It just takes up space. I'd rather have properties so that I can see information about the layer that I'm on, or have my history palette open, or something along those lines. Adjustment layers just seems pointless to me when the layers palette, which is so valuable, you'll have it open most of your career, has adjustment layers on it. So I'm just going to add a level here. And I'm going to go ahead and, do we want to open up the black first or the white first? Let's do, oh, that's a good question. Let's start with the black, a little more extreme on the black. Control I to invert. Notice I clicked the mask layer before I hit Control I. Now I'm going to show it using the white color here and the brush. I'm going to just do, 40% is probably going to be plenty. Oh, it's going to be too much. It's coming in too strong. 10% it is. And 0% hardness. I'm just going to increase the size and kiss it a little bit. Kiss, kiss. And let's take a look at this. Alt click, boom. You can see how I'm just slowly building up inside the mask. Like that, nice soft color. All right, click back out here. Oops, I clicked on the wrong spot. I need to do it over here on the actual layer itself. I've lost too much. All right, let's get some of that beak, because you know, it's the only thing that will define the beak is that black line. And let's see if I can get something in here. It looks pretty much about it. Can bring in a little more of that. That's good. Okay, let's do some of the black areas. I'm actually going to do this below another one. I'm going to go to the adjustment layer again, and I'm going to go to levels. And this time, I'm going to just burn it out. And oh, there's some stuff in the foot I didn't even see. Some feathers in here, a little bit there. A lot to work with. I like that eye. I think this is good. Let's go ahead and actually select a couple of spots. I like that. I like that a lot. Get that. I'm holding down Shift to add to the selection. I like this. I'm going to, I think I'm going to keep all of that. Look at that. Okay. And now I'm going to invert the selection with Control-Shift-I. Control-Shift-I being the same thing as select inverse selection, or inverse. And now I'm going to make sure that I have my levels adjustment layers mask selected, this guy right here. And I'm going to invert the color, and if I click Alt real quick and click on it, the color being white, I'm going to invert that to black. Control-I on the keyboard. Boom. Control-D to deselect. Oh, look at that eye. So I'm going to Shift-click to disable it for a second. Sorry. I'm going to turn off the eyeball to disable it for a second. Oh, yeah. And we got the foot. You know what? I think I like the foot in solid shadow, though. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to take the brush, D on the keyboard to default, X for black, opacity up to 100%. Hardness up to 100. Oh, sorry, that's size. Hardness up to 100%, and just paint that back in. I think that just looks better as a shadow. And if you think I'm wrong, you know, you don't have to do it the same way I do it. There we go. Oh, let's paint in some more black here, just to smooth that off. That's a little too much. It's good up there though. Get that. Get that. Now I'm just on the adjustment layer, the levels adjustment layer that makes it darker. I'm painting white on its mask to reveal it. See that? If I wanted to actually invert some of these colors almost. There's stuff hiding down there. What? Guys, I didn't even realize. What else is down there? Just that, I guess. All right, let's bring that in. Looks good. What about over here? A little bit. Yeah. A little too much. There we go. Oh, I like that. Overdid it. There we go. Light touch is a good touch in this case. There. Oh, I think that looks pretty good. Look at all these textures we brought out. Yeah, save that. Do I want to make that? Yeah, I do. Bring that in. I'm going to leave that though. Alrighty. Overall, I think that's a pretty good effect. I'm going to Control S to save. And this might be enough for the duck itself. Let's go ahead and move on to the next video where we will do the final adjustments to the main image and add some color to it. I will see you in the next one.